Hello everybody. As you can see, I've got the tie on again, and as you can hear, we got the Top Hollow Music day theme going in the background, which means, you know what time it means? It's time for more news. Now, this was a very interesting news posting. I wasn't expecting to be making a video talking about this because, typically speaking, I like to only cover stuff that impact the meta and viability of certain things. If it's just a random news to be like, hey, we got updates coming out, and it's just like, we're doing bug fixes. I don't care. I'm not going to make a video out of that. But this one's a very interesting update. Because it's just a lot of unexpected minor buffs to some lower tier Pokemon that don't often get used. And I like seeing that because there have been some skills and stuff that have been kind of problematic in a sense that, like, they just really are broken. And it seems like they're finally addressing the broken nature, and not broken in a good way, like broken overpowered, like broken in a sense that there are just innate flaws with the way they function that, like, increasing proc rates wouldn't really help. Increasing the numerical strength of the skills wouldn't help, and they're addressing those core issues in this update, which is why I'm really interested in this and want to make a video about it. And it's why I just love these devs. I really love Select Button. They listen to their crowd, they notice the issues within their game, and they're taking time to actually address the real root causes of problems and imbalance in their game. And yeah, so let's just get right into it. Update 2.1, I'm not gonna go into, like, too many of the, like, I don't really care about the new alarms, I don't really care about Mimikyu. I already made a video about Mimikyu, and my initial thoughts about Mimikyu. There's nothing new about Mimikyu here. If you want any info on about that, go to my Halloween update, or my Halloween news video. I talked way about more there. But, as far as what I want to talk about with this is the balance adjustments. There's some really interesting stuff here, and they're really trying to bring certain Pokemon up to viability. I feel like this still isn't going to be enough, depending on how much they adjust things, but it's going to be interesting. Now, first thing, Energizing Cheer S. Any of you that were around very early on will know that this skill was a garbage skill. It still is a pretty bad main skill. It's historically been one of the worst just because it's strictly worse than Energy for Everyone. Energy for Everyone reliably heals the entire team, reliably heals themselves, reliably keeps the team topped off. But Energizing Cheer, it needs to proc enough times a day that it gets every member on your team, but there's always a chance that it procs on the wrong Pokemon and double heals something that doesn't need it. And in that case, you end up with wasted energy. The skill gets lesser value because, like, max level 6, it gives 50.6 energy to whatever Pokemon it procs on. If that happens right at the beginning of the day, 0.6% of an energy point is wasted immediately, right off the bat. Now, that's hardly anything. You're not going to notice a big difference in output by 0.6 being wasted, but let's say it's a double proc right away in the morning, and it gives it both to the same Pokemon. You literally wasted an entire proc of a skill just by sheer chance. Now, later on, they tried to make the skill a bit more viable, and they gave it a buff where it's like a coin flip odds to pick the lowest energy Pokemon, and then the other Pokemon on the team are all random chance of the other 50%. So it was way more likely to select the one Pokemon, but it's still a coin flip odds, and that still leads to a lot of waste. And the way they're addressing this is they're doing the exact same thing they did before, but just balancing it even more. They're making it so that the probability that the main skill, Energizing Cheer, targets the Pokemon with the lowest energy is raised even more. It'll be interesting to see how much more, because that, like I said, it'll be interesting to see how much more. Will it be 60%? Will it be 75%? I don't think it'd be as high as like 80%. That seems like that'd be really high up there. But raising it more does help the skill, and I love to see that, because as of right now, if you look at my tier list, the two biggest Energizing Cheer Pokemon are in F tier, because they're just so much worse than Energy for Everyone. Unless you're doing some sort of thing where you're trying to only use bottom tier Pokemon, check out my Sleep Sleepers series. Not a shameless plug at all. But unless you're doing that, there's really no use for the skill other than for it to just be on certain Pokemon as a side bonus, like Ninetales and Comfey. So it's overall just a bizarre skill, and I like to see that the devs are buffing it because a lot of the Pokemon that have had it are bad, and they need something going for them. And hey, it's nice for me because it's buffing those Pokemon. I don't think it'll be enough of a buff to bring them out of F tier. I might bring them into D tier to be a slightly alternative option. And the Slowpoke line also benefits from it quite a bit because even though they're actually pretty good at proccing this skill, and they were like the only ones that were out of the F tier, but it wasn't even the skill that kept them out of the F tier. It was more the fact that they had synergy with Suicune, and they were one of the only producers of Slowpoke tails. That's like the only reason why they weren't in the bottom. They were a skill specialist that you didn't really care much about their skills. You did, but you didn't that much. But now there's a bit more reason to run them. Maybe having a Slowking might be a viable option for the team healer. It'll be weaker than a Gardevoir, sure, but it might be something that could be worth the trade-off. Now, I like to see that. Next ones. Very interesting change here. Houndour and Houndoom. Now, Houndour and Houndoom, or Houndoom specifically, I'm just going to talk about Houndoom. If we analyze the Wiki Berry, Houndoom's the Wiki Berry specialist. It's good, but if we do a just quick production comparison of Houndoom compared to a Walrein, you can see that it's not the greatest, because these guys share an island. So in Snowdrop Tundra, you can see that it just is weaker in about every way. So like it's about 6k weaker at base. That's a pretty significant difference for level 60. That's a pretty significant difference in their output at their Faber Berry Island. So Houndoom was always kind of one of the lower tier berry specialists, despite having a Faber Berry Island. But they're doing something very interesting. They're changing its main skill from Charge Strength M, or Charge Strength S to Charge Strength M, which is a huge buff to its skill. But they're also lowering its skill proc rate to balance it, which feels kind of bizarre. So, like, they're trying to buff it, but at the same time, they're trying to keep it balanced. So they're buffing its skill, but weakening its proc rate of said skill. And also, given that it's a 2-stage Pokemon, and it's a berry specialist, you're not really going to be looking at its skill too much anyway. But the fact that they're giving it this might give it some sort of weird niche where it could be like a dual berry skill specialist. I'm not expecting it to be good as a skill specialist, but if you're using a Houndoom, this could be a nice little buff. I mean, if we assume that this is like the equivalent of having like 2 skill seeds put into it, which is pretty generous, it still doesn't bring it up to beating out the Walrein. In fact, even if we say that it's the equivalent of having 5 skill seeds put into it, it makes it barely beat out the Walrein. So I'm not expecting to really see a meta shift here, but it does show that they're addressing certain weaker Pokemon like the Houndoom. This could mean that we might get something for Raticate in the future, or Butterfree maybe. Butterfree's one of the worst. Even without having an island, of the ones that don't have an island, it's like the weakest. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do for more Pokemon in the future, and see if like the main skill is something that they'll tamper with more. Now, the one that I think is really, really interesting is Umbreon. Umbreon has historically been the literal worst evolution. I think that's still going to be the case, but they're changing it from being completely useless and completely selfish, and pretty much there's literally no reason to run it unless like you don't have a good Houndoom or Walrein or Raticate or Vigoroth, and you happen to find a really good berry finding as Eevee. Then maybe you run it as a Snowdrop berry finder, but even then, Glaceon was always better still. So like, there wasn't really a good usage for the Umbreon ever. because it was just innately flawed. It was just a closed loop of energy going back into the Umbreon to produce more energy, to produce more energy, to produce more energy. No exit of the energy to anything else. No extraction of productivity from the main skill. It was pretty much useless. But now they're giving it a unique skill. This is, with the Houndoom and the Umbreon, this is the first time we've ever seen them actually change the main skill on a pre-existing Pokemon. Which is interesting, because that was previously something that kind of seemed like was untouchable. You couldn't actually change the skill itself. You could change minor things about the skill, like what they did with Energizing Cheer. You could change their proc rate, but they never actually changed their skill, and they're doing that here. And in the case of Umbreon, they're giving it a unique skill. They're changing its Moonlight, parentheses, Charge Energy S. Moonlight is interesting because it gives it a slight chance to great success to give some energy to another Pokemon on the team. The closed loop is broken. I don't think it's going to be good, because this is going to be a great success, which if it works the same way that Mimikyu was talked about, then a great success can only happen once per rest. So it's still... it's only going to be giving energy to one other Pokemon on the team one time per rest, if it works the same way. If it doesn't work the same way, then it's like... if it's just a % chance every time, then it might be similar in terms of Energizing Cheer. I can't imagine, though, that they would make it better than Energizing Cheer, since Energizing Cheer is the give energy to one Pokemon on the team skill, and this is still meant to be a charge themselves skill. So, I think it's still going to ultimately be a bit selfish. Oh, they're also nerfing its proc rate a little bit for the sake of this buff. Yeah, the main skill chance will be lowered slightly. That doesn't matter. If you know anything about Umbreon from before, it just procced way more than was ever necessary. In fact, if you get really into it, you look at the Umbreon. If you just look at base Umbreon at level 60, no even like main skill chance things put into it at all. It was proccing 7 times per day. With skill level 2, that's like... with skill level 2, that's giving it 16.2 energy per proc. 7 times a day. That's 113 bonus energy it's getting per day. Just off of its skill. And that's kind of rounding things down. It was more than necessary, to say the least. So, to lower that, for the sake of breaking the closed loop, and making it actually contribute to the rest of the team a little bit, even if it's just a little bit, it's better than nothing. So, I think this is a really cool thing, and they're addressing the core issue with the Umbreon before, in the fact that it was a closed loop. Because before I said, you know, you could have given the Umbreon a 50% proc rate, and it wouldn't change it at all from the 14% that it already had. Because it would still function exactly the same. Energy's still probably going to get wasted on it, especially if you're running it alongside an Energy for Everyone healer. But it's just a very interesting change, and a very welcome one as well. Other things? Halloween Hat Pikachu. Frequency shortened slightly. They're making it faster. My assumption for this is so that if we get it in comparison right here, the way it currently is, because obviously Raynon X hasn't updated to fix this yet, or to take into account this new update. If we compare these guys, if we compare Halloween Hat Pikachu to a basic Pikachu, the Halloween Hat is faster. It'll outproduce the basic one. But when Halloween Hat Pikachu was introduced, ribbons weren't a thing yet. And the Halloween Hat Pikachu is considered fully evolved, so it cannot benefit from a ribbon. So if we make them both even just 500 hours slept with, which honestly 500 hours, yeah, that sounds like a lot, but in the big scheme of things, it really isn't that much. Then just a basic Pikachu, which is far easier to come by, is better than the Halloween Hat Pikachu. So my theory is that they're going to make it that a Pikachu with 2,000 hours slept is going to be worse than a Halloween Hat Pikachu with 2,000 hours slept, which, when we look at base frequency, here, we're going to do some live math here. I need to actually remember How fast is the Pikachu? I don't know. I don't have the Halloween hat and base Pikachu stats memorized. Sorry. Okay, 4320 on the Halloween hat versus 45 on the base. So if we're looking at 45, well, I'll do it on the calculator in here so you guys can see it. If we're looking at 45 minutes over 60 seconds, that Pikachu has a base rate of 2700. Oops. Whoopsie daisy. I need to figure out the effects of ribbons. The Good Night ribbons, they decrease a fully evolved Pokemon's, or a middle one, they decrease it by 7%. So, times 0.93. So this is base frequency for basic Pikachu. Given that base frequencies in this game are always in multiples of 100, I'm assuming they're probably decreasing the Halloween hat Pikachus from whatever its frequency is right now to like 2500 probably. Because right now it's 2600. I'm assuming they're just going to drop it down one stage to 2500, maybe 2400. But that seems reasonable because then it is better than the basic Pikachu, even with a maxed out ribbon. So there is a reason to hunt the Halloween Pikachu rather than just going for a regular Pikachu, which is way easier to hunt, and then just building up that ribbon. Now this guy will actually be better even after the effects of ribbons are taken into effect. And I think that's the primary reason why they did it, because nobody was really complaining about the Halloween hat Pikachu's productivity. In fact, a lot of people were like, I'm going to hunt the Halloween hat Pikachu to pair with my Raikou. So seeing this change is very interesting, because it wasn't really something that I think was a problem in the meta. Halloween hat Pikachu was already something that a lot of people wanted, and it was very desired, because it was a limited edition thing, and it paired really well with Raikou for skill stacking, for making a berry bomb. But they just made it better, just a flat buff to frequency, which, if you know anything about how the math works behind this game, how Pokemon strength is developed in this game, a flat buff to frequency is the single strongest buff you can give to Pokemon in this game. Because it not only increases whatever it's trying to be good at, but it increases the stuff that it's not trying to be good at as well. Now, I wonder how this puts it in comparison to the Raichu. Like, if it decreases it to 2500. See, Raichu still will be way faster, because 3640 is just a really, really fast rate. They're not going to make it faster than that. Which is 2200. Yeah, it's not going to come close to that. But it's going to be interesting to see the buffs they make to this little Halloween hat guy. But yeah, I'm excited for this update. It really just shows that they're thinking about the problems with the Pokemon in this game, and they're just trying to balance it out, trying to make it fun. Anyway, if you've enjoyed the content and learned something, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. I enjoy reporting these news videos. Honestly, I think they're my favorite videos because I like hopping on the news right when it pops off, and I like talking about how it might impact the meta. These are like my favorite videos on the channel, so yeah, leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you for watching.